Yo, what's going on? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I realized. Anyway, I'm not gonna even say it. But anyway, it's your man, Rick the Dawn. Real quick, y'all. What did you feel about Shaquille's mother? We saw the conversation take place very early in the episode, and as I'm listening to the conversation, I couldn't help myself but wonder how people were perceiving that conversation between Shaquille and Kirsten. If you didn't see the episode, Shaquille's mother FaceTime Kirsten while she was at the gym doing some fake workout, right? And she basically said, "Hey, how are things going?" And Kirsten asked, "Well, have you spoken to Shaquille?" At which Shaquille's mother said, "Yeah, I spoke to him, and he told me everything, girl." It was kind of like that, and they talked about a few things that I think Shaquille divulged to his mother. And one of the biggest focal points was how Kirsten was not supporting Shaquille. Now, if you don't know, this whole debacle stems from the fact that Shaquille wanted Kirsten to go on a trip to Memphis, I believe it was, some kind of college trip. And also, even further beyond that, Shaquille expected to get or graduate, but he had learned that his graduation was pushed back for whatever reason. So this caused him to be upset, which I think is the real issue. He was upset with the fact that he couldn't graduate. Um, and they rewire it to be about the spouse. So I believe that was the crux of the real issue. And he rewired it to be Kirsten's fault for not going with him. Now, of course, it would have been great for Kirsten to travel with Shaquille to Memphis. That would have been cool. But does it make Kirsten a bad person, a bad wife? That's what we're trying to debate. I have my opinions. I like to give you all your space and your time to reflect on the questions that I'm asking. But certainly, I will be sharing my thoughts. But uh, I think I need to just do it now. It's bursting at the seams. First off, I think Kirsten is her own woman. She has things that she's trying to accomplish herself. She's a freaking realtor, and I don't know the workload that a realtor has, but it just feels like they're very busy. I'm not sure if that's true. It just seems like at a moment's notice they can get a call about a house showing and things like that. But again, I don't know the details. And oh, man, what did you think about the phone call? Are you pro mom, anti mom? If I haven't made anything clear, this one thing clear, I am grossly against in-laws butting in relationships or their children's relationships, and I can't criticize it too much because I haven't been an in-law before, so I don't know what that feels like. I just know I've always felt the energy from the in-laws, like there's just like this weird energy as if they're trying to protect their child from you, and it's like, wait a minute, I don't like your child, like your child's crazy, that, right? But they can't see it that way because of bias. But his mother basically grills Kirsten because she didn't go on this trip with Shaquille, and she terms it as you didn't support him. I bit my tongue. You don't support him. You're not supporting him in this most vulnerable moments. So, do you agree or disagree with that particular sentiment from mom? I held it back as long as I could. All right, here I go. Shaquille just further proved Kirsten's initial problems or issues with him. The fact that she perceives him as soft and masculine. I don't think that him telling his mother, going to his mom, and I think Shaquille is plus 30 plus, going to his mom, telling his mom all the business that's going on in the relationship. I am grossly against going to anybody, especially in-laws, mothers, fathers-in-law, whatever. I'm really and strongly against that because I just feel like you're inviting trouble. When you go to your mother, your father to talk about your wife, or you go to your auntie to talk about your wife, you go to your brothers and sisters to talk about your wife, and vice versa. It's only going to create chaos because they're never going to love that spouse like they love you. So by default, they're all automatically going to see that person as wrong, even if you're in the wrong. So by Shaquille going to his mother, he basically, in my opinion, set Kirsten up for failure. I mean, what is his mom going to say? Well, she wasn't supposed to go with you, son. You're supposed to go. No, she's used to calling Shaq, and Shaq is her baby. And you can tell that she holds Shaq in high regard, as she should. But I think my initial problem, I don't even know if I have a problem with his mother's response to Kirsten. I think my real issue is with the fact that a 30 plus year old man went to his mother to complain about his wife. Something about that just don't sit well with me. It just don't. I'm of the fabric that as a man, you have to be the man of the household. You have to, I should say, all problems start and end with the man of the house. I think once a man goes to his mother to complain about his household, he loses all power. And this is very ironic given the fact that Kirsten has made it known to Shaq that she doesn't find him to be as masculine. Now, here's where I take a little bit of Shaq's side, because I also had an issue with Kirsten doing the exact same thing, but in a different way. Last week, Kirsten did a lot of comparing her father to Shaq, or Shaq to her father. I'm grossly against that as well, because Shaq, no matter how hard he tries, he'll never be your father, Kirsten. So I don't know if you can tell. I'm not sure if you're starting to pick up some things that I'm dropping. I'm just really, really against in-laws in the marriage in any capacity outside of supporting. Now, if an in-law is supporting the marriage and just being an open ear to both parties, fine. But anytime that a in-law or parent is being used as leverage or used in a way that could be hurtful to the other partner, it's a recipe for disaster. I'm telling you, I know this for a fact. And I think that Shaq was out of line for going to his mother and complaining the way he did, especially when I think the world can see, or at least I can see, especially when the real issue was never Kirsten. The real issue was the fact that he couldn't graduate. And can we just get this out the way? You know what? I don't know if people dislike me for the fact that I'm not gonna hold back what I see. If I see it, I see it. I'm not gonna hide it. The reason Shaq, first off, the first reason why Shaq wanted Kirsten to go is actually he didn't even care if she went, right? He's only upset because he couldn't graduate. But the second most important reason why he wanted her to go is to show her off, because Shaq is a person who cares about appearance. He made that very clear when he first introduced himself to the world. He talked about him having all these suits. So he cares about appearance more so than the substance of anything. He wants to look the part. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he wanted to show his colleagues, his students, whoever he's going to see in Memphis. He wanted to show that he had things together. He wanted to show Kirsten off, especially because she's extremely beautiful. He wanted to show her off. That's what this was all about. It was about showing off, right? So couple those two things together, the fact that he wanted to show off and the fact he couldn't graduate, there's your problem. And instead of just saying that, I wanted my wife around so I can show that I'm doing well for myself, because, you know, a wife is her husband's like crown almost. It's like, you know, she is a great representation of her husband. So I think he wanted his wife around so he could say, hey, look, I'm doing well. She's a symbol of his success in a lot of ways, right? And couple that with the fact that he didn't graduate, that's your issue right there. And as a man, two things would have solved this problem. Number one, really, saying, hey, I really want you to go. Now, there was some conflict about him saying he wanted her to go and she didn't want to go, whatever. But the point is just saying like, hey, I really want you to go. Are you saying you're not going to go? I'm asking you like very openly. You're not going, and get a definitive no, like I'm not going. Then you have leverage about, when it comes to I asked you to go, you didn't ask, whatever. The second thing you could have did was handled everything internally and not spilling things to your mother. So I think that Shaq is wrong. I think his mother is wrong, but at the same time, she's wrong because of Shaq. Okay. And as a mother-in-law, and I'll never be a mother. I'll never be a mother of a son, no matter how hard I try. So I don't want to be hypercritical because I don't know what she feels when she sees her son with a woman who potentially or very likely takes her place in his life. Because that's what a wife is supposed to do, as far as I'm concerned. She's supposed to fill the void of the mother, given the fact that the wife is taking the son from the mother. And dare I say the son should have already left the mother by this point. But anyway, I don't know what she felt, But based on how I heard or what I heard, she seemed to be very, very angry. I felt anger. I saw anger, and I ain't like it. I ain't like it. But I will give Kirsten 5 stars for the way that she handled the situation, because Kirsten did an amazing job with not getting nasty, not being disrespectful, and actually humbling herself. Kirsten has earned so many points back in the last 2 or 3 weeks for me. Okay. Now, I'm not a big fan of her comparing Shaq to her father. I'm not a big fan of the buy me a house. That's all bad and red flags for me. But still, she's still done a great job with just showing me that she's more well-rounded than I initially thought. Okay. So that's my thing. If you disagree, cool. If you agree, cool. Let me know either way in the comment section. Was Shaq's mother in the right or wrong based on how she approached Kirsten? Now, next, I would like to talk about Christopher and Nicole. Man, a lot going on in this relationship. I want to give Chris a little grace. I've always been hypercritical of Chris. You know how people say that a woman has a permanent B word face, like it's like her face is just set at a certain tone. And Chris has a permanent crybaby face. It's like every time I look at Chris, I'm like, is he about to cry? So I want to give him a break, because this episode showed a lot of maturity. It showed that he is a very, very nice guy. I think not nice to a fault. And I know I'm in the minority on that. I just think he's too nice. And it's not because he can get ran over. I think he's so nice that he'll hide in his true feelings, which can create issues and problems in the marriage down the line. Because at some point, Nicole's nagging and pushing and pulling will make him break at the seams. And at that particular point, I feel like Chris could just have a bad moment. Now, is it a moment bad enough to end the relationship? I'm not sure if that's true, but I think it'll be bad enough to definitely, be an issue. All right, be an issue for sure. So I'm just kind of nervous for Chris, and I'm actually nervous for the relationship long term. Now, Nicole, man, I'm a big fan of Nicole. I like Nicole. I try to like Nicole as much as I can. But this episode, she just wasn't doing it for me. A lot of issues, a lot of baggage. We all have baggage, but something in me makes me believe that Nicole thinks her baggage is more important, I guess. It's like we all have issues. We all have insecurities. We all had difficult pasts. Start to get over it a little bit. We all had rough relationships, right? We haven't you had one? I know I've had some. And it's like, start to get over it a little bit so that it's not becoming a weight on your partner. But I like the fact that she was able to understand, like, hey, I'm not a terrible person. Or actually, I should say Chris noticed this, because Chris said, hey, there was a point at the honeymoon where I broke down crying. Remember that? And she was there to support him. So I thought that was really cool. But definitely the roles have reversed. And I do like the way that Chris has handled Nicole's issues and problems. Okay. Next, I want to talk about Airris and Jasmine. And Airris is struggling, y'all. I mean, we can all see this from a mile away. He does not like the way this girl look. It's just you can just see it. He can't get past it. What that means to me is a few things. First off, it just means that Airris is not a husband. He's not ready for marriage. Okay, he's just not there. And I don't know if that makes him a bad person. I would argue it makes him a little irresponsible. And I say that because he signed up for this process, and now he's hurting this young lady. That's the part I don't like. And it makes it seem as if Jasmine has done something wrong, when in reality, she's done nothing wrong at all. In fact, she's been a model wife this entire time, because I would say the sign of a good wife is a wife who will stick by her husband in his highest moments and lowest moments. No matter where he is in life, a good wife will be there to support her husband. I think Jasmine is a model version of that particular sentiment. And Airris, if anything, has been the model of what not to be as a husband. Judgmental towards your wife, cut off, shallow, and giving other women more attention than you're giving your wife. These are all signs of a terrible husband. Telling your wife she's not beautiful. I don't know how that's going. But I do want to say something in Airris's defense. He is not a bad person. Okay. He might be shallow, but I'm not sure that he's a bad person. I don't want to go that far. I think he's a decent person who is not a husband. And I think after this experiment, he should never even utter the words husband. He's not that. no matter how hard he tries. He's not a husband by any stretch of the imagination. And I think he needs to, start to realize that. His cousin is right. Who knew that she would be right? So there's a big conflict in this episode where Airris and the line dancing instructor have a little moment. They, kind of having a little get together, a little dance, and this set Jasmine off. And what I really dislike about this relationship is the fact that Jasmine now thinks she's ugly. There's no other way to look at it. In fact, we saw that when she went and got her teeth, the little teeth things going on, her new hairdo and all that. That tells me that she thinks this experiment made her feel like she's not attractive. And there were several occasions in this episode when I'm looking at Jasmine, I'm like, hey, Jasmine, look, I'm not sure what's going on with my brother here, but there'll be several suitors ready to take his place because he can't hold that slot. And that's pretty much it. She's a very beautiful young lady, and everybody is not everybody's type. I'll tell you, there's some celebrities who a lot of people find beautiful. I look at them, I wouldn't date them, I wouldn't touch them. All right, it's preference, right? So I just hate the fact that now she may feel as if she's not beautiful, despite the fact that she's very beautiful. And I think the evidence shows that she's won pageants and things like that. So yeah, I just hate that part. But this relationship is already over. It doesn't matter what they're telling the cameras. There was a point in the episode where they said, hey, do you think this is, I think Dr. Pepper asked, is this relationship over? We don't want to waste our time. And Airris was the first one to respond. He said, no, I don't think it's over. I still want to be here. And I'm like, come on, bro, just stop wasting everybody's time. And how about Megan Good's ex-husband being on the show as a counselor? How funny was that? Because, he's fresh out of a divorce with Megan Good. But for whatever reason, he's a counselor giving people pointers on how to sustain a good marriage. But I digress. Next, I want to talk about Clint and Gina. Really enjoying this couple on screen. This is the most irritating couple I've ever seen on the show. They have all the makings of a strong couple. They're very, very beautiful together. They banter and they laugh at each other. They're friends first. But for whatever reason, they just can't turn the corner into romance. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have no questions about it. This is all Gina's fault, okay? Look, Clint has done everything he can possibly do to rectify all issues. Yes, he had a snafu at the honeymoon, but it was warranted. She had said she didn't like gingers, and she did, said some different disrespectful things. And this caused Clint to lash out in the way that he did. So to hold that against him, I think is slightly unfair, or maybe greatly unfair. And since then, Clint has done everything possible to redeem himself, and it just hasn't mattered yet. And I know what Clint is thinking because I'm a husband. I know what husbands think about at least 75% of the time. It is having sexual relations with your wife, and that should be our God-given right. In fact, it is. Our conjugal rights are a right for a reason. And he's just not getting that. I don't know how this guy is surviving. I really don't. And like I said, I think it's all Gina's fault. And I'm not saying it as like Gina's a bad person. I'm saying this situation, this conflict, the fact that this marriage has not worked to this point is Gina's fault exclusively. Whatever Clint said struck such a big nerve in her. Perhaps this is a huge flaw that she, maybe she's self-conscious about her look and her appearance, and this just hit her smack in the face. All right, because he didn't even say anything about Gina directly. He says he typically dates slender women, and that's not to say that Gina is slender or not, but she automatically connected the dots, and here we are. This relationship is doomed, and I hate it because he's such a good guy. Now, I did see a picture online with Clint with his hair like nice and cut, like trimmed up. So I'm wondering if Gina had a part in that. While I can't say for sure. But anyway, the final couple, we have talked about Shaq and Kirsten quite a bit, so I won't go too far, but I will say that I was very upset with Shaq this episode. I thought that Shaq was definitely acting like a crybaby. And I hate to say that because there's a lot of talk about masculinity on this show, a lot of things being targeted at Shaq about his masculinity. So I don't want to add on to that, but I got to call a spade a spade. He was acting very, very crybaby-ish. I didn't say it like a female, but he was definitely and certainly acting like he was very soft. And this could be what Kirsten has been alluding to the entire time. He was moping at the dinner, just moping around. And, you know, he walked out from the dinner very emotional. And I'm not going to disrespect him further because I don't know where that emotion stems from. You know, he talked about his car accident, and I'm assuming that that has traumatized him and things like that, forming relationships. I think he said his father wasn't in his life. So a lot of things there to not judge, but try to understand. I can't understand it, but I can try to. But also another good point or a good thing that happened for this relationship is the fact that they consummate their marriage. So that is a step in the right direction. And I definitely saw Kirsten opening up more to Shaq than she had for the entire season. When Shaq walked away from the table, you saw Kirsten basically chase after him and say, "Hey, what's wrong?" And as Shaq was complaining, she was very susceptible to what he was saying, and she was listening. And she said, "I'll make changes." That was a Kirsten I had not seen up until this point. So that made me very happy to see that Kirsten has had a great maturation from the beginning of this season. I'm almost afraid to watch episode 1 and 2 because I know I will not like Kirsten all over again. But the Kirsten I see in this episode 15, is a much different woman than she was for episode 1 and 2. And there lies the great mystery of marriage. It's like you're married to a person, but they change over and over and over again. So it's almost like you're married to multiple people over the span of life, right? You meet them at this point and they're that person. And a few years later, they change, they're somebody else. So, you know, I feel like Kirsten has done some of that, but very early. It hasn't taken years. It's taken, 30 days? And she's already starting to look like a whole different woman to me. Much more wife-like. Initially, I got a lot of like, you know, F girl vibes, you know, hot girl summer vibes, social media vibes. Now I'm getting wife vibes. Now she's still not perfect. She still hasn't kind of ironed out all the wrinkles, but she's certainly making strides in the right direction. And if Shaq is not careful, he might lose her because he's starting to complain a lot. But I will say this. I think some complaining is due and some complaining is necessary because in the first 5 episodes or so, Shaq did no complaining. He was actually like real, like just kind of, he was very humble and taking a lot from Kirsten. And I think right now is the backlog where now he's like, all right, she's pushed me far enough. And now he's starting to lash out a little bit. But I hope at some point he kind of yields and realize like, hey, okay, all right, you made your point. You told your mama, she made your point too. It might be time to give her some grace and let her figure this out. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If so, throw your main man a like. I appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe out there. Peace.